that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Hello, beautiful people. How are you? Hope you are doing better than I was last night. So the reason for the lack of last night's program was because yesterday, for some reason, and it just got worse and worse and worse throughout the day, I woke up with a gunky right eye. And by about 6 o'clock last night, every time I took a blink, it looked like I was a Picasso painting. That sort of unstick my eye the whole bloody time. It was rather off-putting, if I'm honest. And it would have been for you too. So I saved us all the bother. But the glorious and always wonderful Becky-O from Truth Seeker TV, who rang up to complain about the fact that I wasn't on or whatever, also gave me a cure, which has worked friggin' wonders overnight. It involved Celtic salt and a shot glass over the eye, not down the throat. So novel and new use for me for shot glasses, but there you go. Success. So thank you, Becky-O. You're a wonderful lady. Should point out, we will be doing a joint show with Becky-O from Truth Seeker TV next Tuesday night, I think. She'll be clearing it up in the chat now anyway. Next Tuesday night, usual time, Cass Smith will be joining us. We're going to talk about the Bloodline Trust again. And that's come back up because a lot of people, a lot of people have got in touch with me recently. They've been following advice from various different fields online, and they are very concerned about things that may or may not be happening in the US that could or could not maybe be happening here in Australia in the not too distant future that could have an impact on how the government views your wealth and how you can protect it. In fact, they're going to close a lot of those loopholes. But Cass Smith and the team at Freedom Financial Solutions have a way that you can protect your family and your wealth inside a Bloodline Family Trust. So considering some of the things that came out of the... I'll bring my microphone down a bit closer, will I? Some of the things that came out of the American... Well, I'm pretty confident it wasn't just the AI guy, the Asian guy, the John SGAU, whatever the hell he wants to call himself, on whichever channel you particularly happen to see. I think last time I saw there were 13 different channels showing this guy, and all showing variations of what he was saying to one degree or the other. One of the things that he said there, and I guess we can talk about it because I've been researching it for the last couple of days. So John AG, or the Asian guy, or John Silver, or he's known as a myriad of different things. He is the same AI construct, and he definitely is an AI construct. The voice is AI, although it's very good AI. And it may well be direct sampled from somebody. That's how good it is. However, what do you say about him? Because if you've been following him closely, and I know many of you have, because we've discussed it privately between us, or you're sending me texts or whatever, he gives good information. In a lot of instances, in fact, in all the important ones so far, he seems to be giving all the right information. It has been beneficial. He explains it in a way for people like me with very little understanding of the market. He explains it in a way that I find very easy to understand, but that also makes me suspicious because I will be easily led. Now, I don't know if you think like that when you think, I'm really understanding this. And I got into him for the first, few days. I couldn't get enough of him. And then I started thinking, hang on, I'm just being guided here. I'm being, I want to believe everything he says. And he says all the right things and shows a few things that we do believe in. And what he says tends to back up what we are seeing. Or is it he's predicting what we're seeing? Either way, there is large elements of truth in the market information he puts to us. That's my conclusion. There is an asterisk beside that, not necessarily a but an asterisk. And that asterisk says, do your own research, which I think is something I've been telling you to do since I did the first show. I think it is a main message of Q and the Q drops. It is also a main message of Q Anon or the Anons to do your own research. So in the spirit of doing my own research, I decided to fact check John Silver, the Asian guy, a little bit about certain things. Now, he is apt to use, he is apt to use, pardon me, documents he claims to have or have seen or have a very good source with direct access to. However, these documents are never directly named. These documents are never directly shown. These documents are completely unavailable if you go searching for them anywhere. At least the ones I've gone looking for are completely unavailable. Now, the CME Group is a Canadian group that is essentially responsible for all the silver in the world, if you like, and they keep tabs on where it all is, who bought it, how much of it they bought and or sold, and when and where they bought or sold. Now, one of the things that came out, and you heard me talk about it on a show the other night, one of those things was that the CME Group had shown the data on Sunday night for the buys and selling of silver stocks during the crash on Friday. And they were, according to John AG, able to show that JP Morgan, amongst others, there were other big banks involved, had faked the market. That's fraud. Okay. Faked the market with sell orders, which they then terminated before completion. So they didn't have to, come up with the money. But what they did while faking all those orders was drive the price of silver down. And they did it together. That's called collusion. So fraud. Here is the definition: a deception practiced in order to induce another to give up possession of property or surrender a right, a piece of trickery, a trick, one that defrauds, a cheat. Well, may I suggest to you, dear friends, that we were cheated, we were defrauded, we were banged up the backside by the banks yet again last Friday. However, the market did need a bit of a correction, and correcting it certainly is at the moment. I wasn't going to do this bit first, but I will do this bit first. Put that one up. Oh, I'll need to go to a different page before I can do that. So that's the Ainsley page right now, showing a spot of silver, $115.59. Gold has shot up over $7,000 again. So if you have a little bit of the golden stuff, you should be pretty happy. That is moving its way back up again. And I want to tell you that very slowly there is a rebuild of silver happening after a big drop again this morning. When I woke up, it was around $1.25. However, shortly thereafter, it plummeted down to about 110. It's now building its way back up again from there to 115. It's finding that new bottom floor, and there are certainly a lot of influences coming in from outside. And that's what John A.G. wants to tell you about, give you good information about. Now, he gives us very dark, deep conspiracy-style stories, which I've got to admit ring true to me, every bit of it. However, when I go looking for certain things, like the CME report on who dumped how much silver last Friday when it came to the banks, he claimed he could show 5 banks dumping millions and millions and millions of ounces just as the price hit rock bottom, so that those banks effectively managed their losses a lot better with a much lower price of silver than they would have when they had to pay out on January 31st. They crashed the market deliberately so they didn't have to pay out at those high rates when the silver ounce rate was up around $170 rather, not $1.70. So mean, nasty, ugly things going on in the bullion market at the moment. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. Don't start freaking out about it. And if you are going to buy, because I'm going to show you see, I've got myself all out of order now because I had these things I was going to show you, which now that I look at it, I haven't even ingested into the system. So give me one flat moment. Ainsley Bullion have just released what I consider to be one of the most magnificent coins I have seen. This one. It is the 2026 Ainsley Wedge-tailed Eagle, and that is a 1 ounce version of it. If you are going to go and buy one of them right now, you will pay $161.13, I think that says. That was 15, 20 minutes ago, maybe half an hour ago when I extracted that. But just get a look at the detail in that coin. I love the wedge-tailed eagle coins. I've got the 2025s, and I have one 2024, I think, too. So that one, I thought, well, I'm going to add that to my must-have list. So I've got that on the wish list. It is, at the moment, awaiting delivery. So how long that will be before it is delivered from the Perth Mint, we'll just have to wait and see. But got me thinking, oh, well, there you go. You're going to pay $161.13 with the current price for spot price through Ainsley is $115.61. Got me thinking about kilos of silver. One of you sent in a note that said, oh, you know, picking up some silver, which is all a bloody great thing. Can't think of anything better. If you can go out and buy some now, buy it now. Much better to buy it now than wait, because I think we've been past the dip. But, you know, if you want to hang around and sit around and wait, you might get it somewhere. It's not going to go below 100, but you might be able to get it a little bit lower than what it is at the moment over the next couple of days. Who knows? The market is very volatile. I would probably caution against going and buying at the moment, because the gold-silver ratio is back over 60. It's at 61. So 61 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. Now, if you are going to buy a kilo of silver, you're going to pay $5,035.86 through Ainsley Bullion today. That was, like I say, about half an hour ago. But if you're going to sell 1 kilo of bullion to Ainsley Bullion, they're going to give you $3,640.15. That is a spread, as it's called, of $1,395.71. And you're probably going, yeah, what? How much profit? Yeah, I know. But this is how the bullion market works, okay? And normally those two prices are very, very close together. But Ainsley Bullion, like every other bullion dealer in the world, currently knows that you can't buy an ounce of silver for $115.59. That is a paper price. That is a pretend price. That is something that the COMEX market has generated in the vain hope that they can sell off some sort of silver orders that are going to miraculously drag them all out of trouble, or that somehow, miraculously, a silver mine is going to open up somewhere overnight and be able to flood the market with hundreds of millions of ounces of silver. And that's not going to happen either. So if you ever needed greater proof, any bullion dealer will just go and look at the spread. The spread is the difference between the paper price and the real price of the physical metal. And the real price of the physical metal has been staying around that $150, $160 sort of dollar mark, while all of this kerfuffle's going on around the paper price in the last couple of days. So, I mean, I don't give financial advice, but I'm going to, should I be able to afford it, I'm going to go and buy one of those wedge-tailed coins. They're not the cheapest way to buy silver. They're probably one of the more expensive ways to buy silver if you're new to this and you don't really care about having a flash-looking coin with a couple of eagles on it. Then you can just go and buy an ounce of silver with nothing on it. And that's the cheapest way to go and do it. And you can do that with Ainsley Bullion if they have any of it available at the moment. And if they don't, there will be some coming, have no fear. So, yes, in the silver market at the moment, lots of interesting things going on. You might be making a little bit of it, and you might want to buy yourself a T-shirt. We have a new design. Vince has done absolutely amazing things, can I tell you? He has put together our new website, which if you go to merch.vofhq.com, you'll see it there, and then just click on the shop. I'm going to take you through this. Now, you'll see here we've got our hoodies and we've got our Land of the Fee shirts, which are all going to get redone. But now you can see we have the Voice of Freedom cup or mug. We also have the shirts. Now, I'm going to click on the shirt and show you what you can do. You can zoom in on it, have a bit of a look around and see if you like that. Now, we can choose an option. Now, I'm going to choose gold because I happen to know that it just looks so good with that on it. Don't you reckon? I reckon that just looks awesome. So that's how easy it is. Click on there, and what do the sleeves look like? So we go back here, and that has the FBN logo on one sleeve. And I really like that logo. Vince needs to be congratulated. He came up with the ideas and fine-tweaked all of those. He's done an absolutely brilliant job. And then on t'other sleeve, you will get my bonds. Or the little cartoon me at any rate. And yeah, there's that. And then on the front, let's get to the front. What will it have on the front? Will it have that? No. Yes. No. You burn it. We'll wear it. And it'll have on the back a Voice of Freedom one. So there you go. Now, as you can see, price guide there, $45. I, just to test the website today, went through and bought a yellow one like that, or the gold, and I bought an orange one because I quite like the orange. It looks quite nice, if I say so myself. And if you go down and check out what it looks like with the burn, I think it works pretty well with the you burn it, we'll wear it too. So going to take about 3 weeks to get delivery, and I was overcharged for postage. It seems when our intrepid maestro of the internet, Vincenzo, was setting up all of this, he set up a flat rate postage system of $17, and it turns out I've paid $11 too much. So you will pay $11 less in postage than I did because he's rectified that problem now. So if you want one of those, or you would like the coffee cup, which I can probably get back and show you, although I'm sure you've seen coffee cups before. And all you got to do is just click on it. You can select an option. There are, now, if you don't know ounces from liters or milliliters, I can tell you that 20 ounces is about 600 mils. So think of it as a Coke bottle. That'd be a large one. 15 ounces is slightly less than that at about 400 and something mils. And 11 is a little over 300 mils in your coffee every morning. The cup doesn't really change much by way of color or design, but that's what's on it. We will have an FBN one up as well at some stage. Probably tomorrow. Vince had a meeting he's got to be at tonight for my place. So I'm not even sharing. Hard for you to see that while I'm looking at it all. So there's the cups and the thing on it. 11 ounce or 15, you don't see any change in the cup size, or 20 ounce. If you like your coffee strong and big in the morning, go for 20 ounce. Why the hell wouldn't you? And you can do it all at merch.vofhq.com. Thank you very much to Vince, who has put in so much work in the last couple of days. We are looking at a variety of other products. In fact, there are so many things that we can put our name and face to that we've been throwing up. Oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. And yes, we could, but we don't want to paralyze you with decisions. I've been working on one particularly today. These are for yoga pants. Now, I think we're going to knock this one on the head because the trolls are going to start doing fart jokes about the voice of freedom. But I could always put the cartoon head on there, but then I thought, who'd want to sit on my head all day? So we might keep yoga pants out of it, at least at this juncture. All right, let's get into tonight's show and what it's really all about. It's pretty easy to tell, folks, very easy to tell, I would have thought, that two-party preferred voting in this country is gone. The Liberal Party, the National Party have, at this stage at least, gone their separate ways. Susan Ley has come out with some noises about opening the door to reunification of the coalition. But the three senators that crossed the floor or upset everybody in the Senate, the joint party room, would not be reinstated. They'd have to sit on the backbench for 6 months, a bit of purgatory, because Susan Ley feels, you must respect my authority. Even though it appears that she's the one who broke the joint party room rules in the way it comes about negotiating how everybody's going to vote. She's the one who didn't have that meeting. She's the one who didn't allow it to be discussed. And look, I'm not making excuses. The Labor Party didn't front up the new legislation, I don't think, until 7 o'clock in the morning. And there was 500 pages of it. Do you really think any one of those people that we've elected to represent us in that place would have read that before they had to go into the Senate? That might have been a good excuse for Jacinta Napier Price to use. Oh, I was outside reading the legislation. That's why I wasn't inside voting on it. Would have been better than, I missed the vote. But anyway, bit disappointing. There are so many disappointing things about our current crop of politicians. And we've whined about it. We've moaned about it. We've tried getting ourselves elected with it. Well, some of us have. And nothing seems to have worked. For a few years now, around election time, various different state or federal elections, I've said to those of us that don't vote, now's the time to weaponize your vote, maybe. And weaponizing your vote doesn't mean not voting. In fact, it means exactly the opposite. If you're one of those people who, like me, for many years chose none of the above and would be prepared to wear the fine if I paid it for not voting, because I don't see a way forward. And people say, oh, well, then what are you going to do? What do you complain? Well, I don't complain about them. I'm only doing this show now because I do vote. And that's why I feel I can have a say. But for many, many years, I didn't care enough. And I think that's a sign of not just my own personal apathy, but a lot of Australians' apathy from my particular era. We didn't care. We were brought up to vote the way our parents voted, whether it was, Labor, Liberal, Country Party, whatever the hell, and you either were Ford or Holden, nothing else. That's how we grew up. So I never got the idea of liking to be forced to vote. That's always gone bad with me, and I know it has with many others. I know Darren Bergwerf and I have together both spoken about not voting and the whys and wherefores of it. I and Vince have spoken about the reasons to vote and the whys and wherefores of it. I can see both sides. However, at this juncture, I think the knowledge that we have about the last federal election is enlightening and extremely encouraging. There were over 3.2 million Australians who did not bother voting, decided to, metaphorically tick the none of the above box, and didn't even bother turning up for the sausage. We need to weaponize those votes, because over 3.2 million votes can make a difference. They can make a phenomenal difference, particularly if they are targeted and exploited correctly. And when I say exploited, I don't mean used, I don't mean abused, I mean preferences. One nation, if they are to get any kind of chance at getting power in this country, are going to require a phenomenal number one vote in the lower house and potentially the upper house. A number of senators are up for re-election this time round. Pauline Hanson is one of them, I think she's listed. We would see Gerard Rennick running again to get back in under the Queensland Senate ticket. But every other senator, and I think there are another 4 or 5 of them at least, for Queensland, are Labor, National, or Liberal. And right now, none of the Liberal Nationals are getting much love in Queensland, regionally particularly. And I can't tell you that the Labor Party are getting a great deal of love in Queensland. So One Nation could potentially put up another 3 or 4 senators into Queensland and potentially get 2 or 3 of them elected on top of sitting. I think that would be stronger if Pauline, well, it said that Pauline was standing, and I don't remember her being in the last election. So I think Pauline is up for re-election this time round, and that's why there is going to be some talk about will she step over to the lower house. Now, she's addressed this in mainstream media over the last couple of days, and I have to say, the interviews that I've seen Pauline Hanson do in the last 3 or 4 days have been the most confident, the most well-spoken, the most well-executed speeches I have ever seen her conduct. Her interviews with a variety of different journalistic type organizations, at least that's what they'd have you believe to call them, the likes of Sky News and associated others. She's holding her own. She's being questioned by the Liberal lovers. She's being pushed by the Labor lovers amongst those journalists, and she is holding her own. And she has been canvassed on the idea of a, oh, God help me, Liberal National One Nation coalition leading into the next election, where when she was asked, could you see that happening? After a bit of a pause, admittedly, she said, yes, I can see that happening. I'd be stupid not to consider it. And my first reaction was to throw myself back in the chair in horror. But then I thought about it. And to be honest, it's not such a bad idea. There may be some bad elements to it, but it's not such a bad idea. And those bad elements could be managed, I suspect, mainly on how many seats One Nation win. The more seats they win, the less likely there is to be too much trouble, I would have thought. But would Pauline, in the lead up to this election, resign from the Senate seat and throw herself into what would be a safe One Nation seat? And my question there is there a safe One Nation seat in the lower house that she could throw herself into. Well, Barnaby Joyce has got the only safe One Nation seat in the House at the moment. So, and some would argue that that's not safe. But he did get re-elected last time round with a very good majority because he has been a good representative for the people in his area. He also has prime ministerial experience, being a former deputy prime minister and being left alone with the keys to the lodge, probably over the summer holidays, but you know how it works. But he probably only drank it dry, but you know. Anyway, that's my feeling on the whole thing with that. I think it would be a very doable and certainly a very interesting dynamic for the next 2 years, because for Pauline, I beg your pardon, it's not Pauline, it's One Nation coming together with the Liberals and the Nationals to form a coalition of power would be interesting. It's already started that I'm not sure if it's the Liberals or the Nationals, it's probably both, have already started adopting One Nation policies that Pauline has been advocating for, I don't know how many years, but many, 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 many years. Now they're coming up with, oh, yeah, we can do that. Oh, yeah, we might be able to do that. Oh, yeah. Look, these bastards that come late to the party and steal other people's ideas are not worth electing, in my mind. They have no ideas of their own. They are bereft of any ability to read the public mood. Now, whether that's through arrogance or just sheer stupidity, I'm not completely sure, because both sides of that particular coalition, and indeed the federal government, exhibit just those traits, arrogance and stupidity, probably in equal measures. They don't exhibit intelligence to much of a degree, although I will single out there are certain elements within the Libs and the Nationals who do appear to have some intelligence and are very happy to outsmart bureaucrats in particular with it. And I'm thinking there of James Patterson. Antic would be another one who's pretty good at it. Canavan is another one who's good at it. These are the people who are actually prosecuting the bureaucrats, asking them the hard questions in the Estimates Committee. And if you go back to the interview that I had with Malcolm Roberts from One Nation, well, it's probably over a year ago now, I asked him then, how frustrating is it to ask these bureaucrats questions and be given smarmy answers or half-truths, or be told, oh, we'll have to answer that on notice, when you know that they probably have a working understanding of the answer you're looking for, but they are finding loopholes, as they always do, not to answer. And he said, oh, well, it's very frustrating, but, you know, there are no real consequences because nobody will hold their feet to the fire, regardless of whether or not the good Senator Roberts stands up and says, listen, you lying piece of filth from the Home Affairs Office, you know who you are. Tell us the truth or go to jail from here now. Bureaucrats don't get to keep secrets from the public. There has to be consequences. And I would hope, ideally hope, and hope may be futile, but ideally hope, and I will pray, that One Nation could make very great, drastic and changes for the positive in that and many other areas. And I have suggested the same in private communications. I have no reason to believe, I've no reason to believe that they have anything other than the best thing in mind for the people of this country right now. I have no doubt that the policies that Pauline has been putting up, and here is one that I'll read to you now. Now, I grabbed this today. I don't know if this came out today or not, but Pauline Hanson declares that Australia will withdraw from the United Nations immediately. Yip, yay. Wiping out all of the billions of dollars contributed to the global bureaucracy. Big tick from me. She calls the UN a gigantic corruption machine, selling out Australian sovereignty to China and dark billionaires. She's now got Corey Bernardi telling her exactly how the UN works because he spent 3 months in the slime pit. I don't think he took a glass of free champagne the whole time he was there, but he took note of everything else. Real handy set of eyes that Malcolm Turnbull thought he was smart in getting him out of Australia, out of the Australian Parliament, where he was causing Turnbull all sorts of problems. Well, let's send him to the UN, get him pissed for 3 months. He'll be fine. We'll get some dirt on him, is pretty much what I thought Turnbull was working for there. But no, Corey Bernardi, pretty upright sort of a human being by the sound of things. Anyway, corruption machine selling out Australian sovereignty to China and the dark billionaires. Her plan? Completely cut foreign aid assistance. Yip, yeah. Ban all UN activities on Australian territory. Oh, yeah. Dissolve the old Foreign Office, absolutely, and replace it with a national sovereignty force. I'm urged and wanting to say yip yah there too, but I'd also want to see some details on the national sovereignty force. All savings, tens of billions of dollars annually, will go into cutting corporate taxes to 15%, building a robust northern border wall, which I see as in inverted commas, against illegal immigration, and providing a direct $5,000 annual grant to each rural household. Okay, now define rural household. I grew up in a town of 400 not even people that was only there for the surrounding wheat farms to be able to get their bread and milk from, and for the local train to stop off occasionally and pick up a couple of silos full of wheat. Is that rural enough? Does that mean all the families in the town get the money, or are we talking about primary producers here, the people that are making the food for this nation? And if that's the case, I'm not against giving the farmers $5,000 because, let's face it, they'd probably use that in a day in diesel ploughing a bloody field. Or they would certainly use that much in diesel preparing, planting, and then reaping the field, I suspect. But anyway, an annual grant of $5,000, an annual, that's repeatable. So over the term of her 4 years, you would get $20,000. In just 72 hours after that announcement, I bet they increased by 28%, the highest in history, causing panic among Labor and Liberal Party, who held emergency meetings, yada, 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 yada. Well, she's giving a bit of wealth back to the people, but what are those sly city folk going to want? Because the skeptics will say she's bribing the rural people with a $5,000 annual gift, while not giving anything to the inner city leftards who have been sucking their thumbs and painting their hair blue and wondering what part of their body they should pierce next. Before going out and having a great night as they, them, who, what, where only can, then I don't know how that's going to work, because they're going to need to attract large swathes of capital city voters. Now, there are two problems with that. You've got all the blue-haired, nose-pierced freaks who don't know whether they're boys, girls, they, them, singular, plural, puppy or pony. Yeah, I was having a furry reference. I'm sorry. You've got them to deal with. But then, of course, you've also got all of the new Australians that have been allowed into this country by Labor, who have been propagandized from the moment they showed interest in coming to this country. And when I say propagandized, they've been fed nothing but Labor propaganda. that Labor are the good guys, that Labor are the ones who got them to Australia, and certainly that's the case. However, if all of those new Australians who are finding it difficult at the moment because of the scrutiny they are under from, what do we call ourselves? Australians, natural-born Australians, I don't know. But I was speaking to some Indian friends recently who feel every time they're in a shop, they're scrutinized by Aussies who look at them like they've just come off the plane. And in my friends' cases, they've lived here pretty much all their lives, and they're in their 50s now. So how do we get those voters to change? How do we explain to them that Labor are only going to bend them over their proverbial curry and do the kind of things that you would expect a lonely goat herder to do to a goat curry prior to it turning into a curry on a lonely cold night in a mountainside? That's what the Labor government's going to do. Thank you. So we need to explain to these new arrivals in this country that the best way forward for us all is a change from everything we've had before. Now, I know there are a variety of arguments that Pauline is not different to anything we've had before. And I can understand those arguments. I can certainly support those arguments, and I have one or two of them myself. When I say I can support the argument, yes, I can support you making that argument. I understand exactly where you're coming from. But let me explain it like this. Right now, One Nation is, and Pauline Hanson, is riding a tsunami of support. That tsunami extends not just across Australia, but around the world. I personally have spoken to people who haven't voted in 35 or 40 years who are now going to vote for Pauline Hanson and One Nation. They're Queenslanders. They will vote for her as the state senator, and they will vote for One Nation and whoever they put up in the lower houses as well. And they can't wait to do it. They're excited to do it. So I rang a few other friends of mine who vote similarly, or don't, as the case is. And they are of the same mind. Oh, yes, they're all fierce freedom fighters. They're all very aware of the matrix. They're all very aware of the legality or the illegality and all the associated other common law arguments. But they're also aware of our size. When I say our size, I mean the people making those sorts of arguments and with that sort of knowledge versus the size of the tsunami that cometh our way. Now, there are elements in that crew who say, we've got to stand up in front of the tsunami and we've got to say, stop, whoa, you're falling out of you're falling back into the matrix. Don't do it. Don't do it. And we might get a few little drops off the top of that tsunami that get blown off the top and come back to us just before we're picked up and slapped face first into the rocks with the full force of the One Nation tsunami behind us. Our message forever drowned in a sea of screams, of joy and laughter as Australia appears to get a new chance at a new parliamentary, I was going to say system, but I don't think we're going to get that, but a new parliamentary champion. For the first time in, well, at least 30 years, I'd reckon, probably longer, we would have politicians and a party leading the country that at this stage present a very strong argument that they love very deeply, they are very patriotic, and they will support very quickly by enabling or removing laws, taxes, and associated other things. So, yes, I think we need to weaponize our vote. The 3.2 million of us that didn't vote in the last election, I wasn't one of you. I did. I had to. I was standing beside Cass Smith at the time, and we we made a bit of a joke. If she didn't vote and she was the one running, then, you know, it was a bit stupid, and then she wouldn't go into the bloody voting hall without me. So we were just coming back from Nimbin that weekend, if memory serves. Whole other story. So what should you do? Well, if you're a non-voter, weaponize your vote. And if you feel the tsunami wave, regardless of what may or may not be the chinks in that wave. Now, I've heard Paulina asked about her connections to Zionism. I've heard her talk about her connections or whatever to various different things that happened with the Liberal Party. I have seen some documentation about her not appearing more than half the time in the Senate when she's meant to be there. I don't know if that's true or not. I've seen all sorts of accusations about her, this, that, the other kind of thing. And right now, I couldn't give a shit. Couldn't care less. Right now, she's on top of a tsunami of support that has the ability, if managed correctly, with the right jingle maybe, to raise a nation, to keep the momentum going for the next 2 years, till the next election and beyond. But if One Nation can sweep into power with a tsunami of support, and by that I mean they get plenty of seats in the lower house so that they gain control. They don't have to negotiate with the Liberals or the Nationals in a coalition. They would become the senior partner with the senior amount or the larger number of people elected into those seats. Now, I realise that's probably going to have to be negotiated before an election. And if my concern is if Pauline and One Nation were to go into some form of three-way coalition, that One Nation could, let's say, win, I don't know, 14 seats. The Nationals win none. The Liberals lose 8, get a few more. But because the Liberals supposedly have the history in the parliament of being the power players, they get to play top dog. It can't work like that. And I don't know whether that has to be figured out before the election or afterwards, but I think it's a very important point for all, because I would hate to see a coalition with One Nation at the moment leading the way be dumbed down to them being a junior member or a junior partner in that coalition after the next election, with the same assholes still making decisions for this country. So weaponize that vote so that none of those assholes currently running the country in Labor, Liberal, you pick National, Greens, Teals, none of them get back in. None of them. Now, I know none is a big ask, but if we don't ask big, we're not going to get enough votes. And when I say we, I mean we the people. If there was another party, if Gerard Rennick's party, People First, was in a position at the moment to be riding this tsunami of support, I'd be saying the same thing about him and not about One Nation. One Nation truly do have the ability now to ignite the passion of the patriot that has given up voting for years, for their entire lives. basically. And they're coming out of the woodwork. I've had 2 of them today and say, I'm going to vote for Pauline Hanson. I'm going to vote for One Nation in the lower house. When do you think they're going to run in Queensland? Meaning a state seat. David Christofouli should be talking with them now, I would suggest, because the LNP in Queensland, while being about the only functional Liberal national coalition in the country, and it has been a solidly built one, funded, may I add, by Clive Palmer, who put all that together, he might need a bit of support next time round too, although we all know the Labor criminals in power up here haven't been able to do much other than show how good they are, so to speak, to their own selves. Anyway, moving on. I wanted to just show you this thing again with the this is the figures that Vince did up for us the other night. Now, we haven't done the 2-party preferred vote yet. I am told that there will be a 2-party preferred national poll coming out sometime in the next 2 weeks. So love to know if any of you get a phone call from anybody doing this sort of polling. Not necessarily what you said, but just whether or not you got that sort of call. They do call all over Australia. It's just weird as to how many people they're going to get. Now, taking away the 2-party preferred vote there of 56-44, you can have a look at the primary vote. Now, this is a few days old, and I believe this has only got stronger, but One Nation has come in well above the coalition, and that seems to be only getting stronger. Labor has dropped, I've heard, down to 32 points, and they are coming further and further back. Albanese is proving to be pretty much unelectable when it comes to the next election as Prime Minister, but will that be enough to see him resign? And when will he do that? Well, he needs to give his successor enough time before the next election to establish themselves. So if Albanese is going to quit, it'll be in between now and the end of now in the middle of next year, I will say, by which time you can look at some of the figures here from the Gen Xers, the baby boomers, and that millennials particularly. Now, if that orange millennial vote grows, that's going to be a very strong number 1 vote for One Nation around the countryside. The Gen Z group are notoriously the group that do not vote. Too lazy to vote, don't feel it matters, doesn't matter, you don't listen to my opinion anyway, all those reasons. And going back to why I didn't vote because I saw nothing to vote for. And I was arrogant, young, couldn't have cared less. I was too busy off doing fun things to be bothered about politics. It's only as we get a little older and a little wiser, I guess. And even then, while I got a little older and a little wiser, it didn't encourage me to vote anymore. However, we do these things from time to time. And right now, I'm telling you that I'm going to vote in the next election. Because let's give this tsunami of support for One Nation every chance to make the differences that we, the people, require our politicians to make on our behalf. We have established that the Liberal Party, the National Party, the Greens, Labor, the Teals are not ever going to work for us. You can understand that because they back away, they shy away from anything like supporting or coming out and doing the things that One Nation says it's going to do. Now, the Liberal Party and the National Party are coming slowly out, adopting One Nation policies and trying to name them their own with a little tweak here or a little tweak there. It's all just bullshit. They should be coming together, throwing it all on the table and saying, how are we going to save this country? Not how are we going to save our asses? Not how are we going to save our seats? Not how are we going to save our ongoing, whatever it is, triple times funded, publicly funded superannuation, which I still believe in great part should be reviewed, maybe based on the decisions and the votes that the members made and what impact those votes had on expenditure v benefit to this nation. they might be made to pay some of it back. And personally, I think the only way they should get a gold card is if it's striped up their backside and used to buy toilet paper. But I could be on my own there. I'm not completely sure. Anyway, this bloke came out and has been saying more things about how we've been awful people and overspending, and the government is, well, that bloke doesn't want to tell everybody that the government has been really the cause of all the overspending. And over summer, the two clowns most responsible for it got their heads together and came up with a whole bunch of excuses, which Jim Chalmers, that's the fella in the Keeney at the back, the mankini at the back, got up in Parliament yesterday or today and did a 180-degree, what a surprise, takedown on what's happened with the economy. It was only a few short months ago he came out and claimed all the benefit, all the glory for making the economy what it was. We'd gone up, something in some graph and down in some other graph, which meant that the interest rates could drop. Oh, that lasted a long time, didn't it? However, today in Parliament, he wasn't his fault. It had nothing to do with government spending. However, every economist in the country has come out and said it's all to do with government spending. And even some of the ex-economists of the nation have come out and said the same thing. Do you seriously think you can trust these bastards in any way, shape, or form? So, my advice, folks, is rearm Australia and weaponize your vote. We don't need guns. We just need to get off our bums. Get away from the PlayStation or the Xbox. Walk down, buy a sausage, stand in a queue, meet some good people, and discuss how good this country would be if we had a bunch of politicians who stand by their word and their policies. And that's where One Nation come in. They're the people who are coming out and saying what they will do. And what they will do are the things we want done. We owe them the chance to do it. But I also believe they get one chance. We need significant change. And if One Nation are to be elected to full power of this nation, we would expect a huge amount of change in 4 years. Not excuses, or no, we're going to start that in 6 years' time, or 3 years' time, or 4 years' time, or we're going to leave that until we've got, because we all know these governments never run to term. We need a government that will show us a future plan and show us how they will work to achieve it without taxing us into oblivion, without telling us lies about climate change, without funding pure fucking fantasies with global or wind power and solar power. Now, One Nation is saying all those right things. They're going to fight tooth and nail. And they will fight for the people in the country. They will fight for the people in the city. The people in the city, well, most of them don't know where milk comes from, let's be honest. Or bread. Or the wheat that's needed to make the bread. Oh, there's wheat and bread? Who knew? One Nation, no. And I really believe this tsunami of support they've got can peter out between now and the next federal election. All it takes is a stupid comment, a bad headline, a misspoke sentence, and the media are going to jump all over them. They're going to attack them. They're going to be looking at, and this is why the One Nation crew, I'm sure, will be vetting everybody who wants to stand, and there are thousands of people, I believe, who want to stand in their local electorates for One Nation. Now, amongst those thousands of people, there are going to be some usurpers in the rank. there are going to be some that are planted by others. There are going to be some who come in to gain information with no real desire to be elected, but just a sticky beak. And I fear One Nation has a hell of a job ahead of it, selecting its candidates for those that it will endorse into what I hope will be every seat in Australia, state and federal, as elections over the next few years go forward. They are certainly looking at doing that in South Australia, and I'm sure they're looking at doing it in Victoria, where in Victoria it has now been absolutely guaranteed that the man responsible for most of Victoria's PMT, I was going to say, but that's not right. Victoria's PTSD. I'm getting my tensions mixed up. He's not suffering a lot of tension at the moment. In fact, he's dribbling a lot from all accounts. I find it hard to be nice, but I find it hard to be nice. So anyway, Dan apparently is unnamed in an unnamed care facility after suffering a very bad stroke. He has mobility and speech issues, meaning he can't run and he can't talk. That's handy, so he won't be running to the court he's meant to be at in Melbourne on February the 11th in the Bike Boy case to explain exactly what the hell happened that night when his supposed wife was driving the car and it got T-boned by a 15-year-old on a bike, when the car looks like it head-oned a bike. The kid had damage equivalent to that sort of an injury. But of course, Dan Andrews, being who he was at the time, was able to make a few phone calls, and certain police did certain things to make it all go away. A bit like the young boy's spleen and a few other rather important internal bits that had to be cut out and turfed because they got smashed to bits in the accident that Dan Andrews' wife apparently was not responsible for while she was driving. Somebody has to be made responsible for this. Dan Andrews isn't going to be able to appear, and in all likelihood, the court is going to make a determination that should he ever be able to appear, they'll hear it then. The family of this 15-year-old are being very gracious in what they're saying, in that they are not saying anything bad about Dan Andrews or his inability to turn up for court or to face any kind of judgment for what he did. I asked the question again, was Dan Andrews' wife charged with anything through all of this? And if so, will she be turning up on the 11th? One can only hope so. All right, going to love you and leave you tonight. We've run over time, but here is a call I saw put up somewhere today. Do not organise to be anywhere else. Let's go, Australia. It's time to go to Canberra. 23rd of March to the 4th of April. Beg your pardon, the 1st of April. That would be April Fool's Day. I also want to say that wasn't the 23rd of March the same date Hoodie told us all to come back after the Million Man March in Canberra a few years ago. Anyway, I haven't checked to see whether or not the politicians are actually sitting on those dates, but why? I say again, why? Please reach out, carl@vofhq.com. Tell me why we're going back. The politicians are there at that time. Do you know where the politicians are at that time? They're behind about 47 layers of security at Parliament House. You might get lucky and catch one of them out. Although if there's 1 million people in Canberra for that week, we'll all be fighting for a toilet. So I don't think the politicians are going to come to the pubs or the clubs or anywhere else, lest they need to go to the little boys' room or girls' room and get caught with some cooker who wants to have a word. But there might be more of a plan than just going to Canberra. And if there is, please let me know. Because at the moment I can see absolutely no reason for it. None. I could be wrong. What are you going to achieve? Would you be going to support a political party? Would you be going to show One Nation support? Would you be going to wave an Aboriginal flag? Would you burn an Australian flag? What? Why are we going? Let us know. More than keen to find out. You never know. I might get myself a pair of pants to wear and start a good fart joke. I'm going to love you and leave you, folks. I've kept you going for a little while longer tonight. I do apologise. Have yourself a bloody good evening. And once again, I'm sorry about last night. I seriously did look like a Picasso painting. The bloody eye, every time I blinked, it like lag. Very nice. Very not nice. But we seem to be over it. It's all gone well. Very quick look to wrap things up at what the live silver price says at the moment. 112.56. So it's just pushing slowly. Just hang on to it, folks, and be aware of the buying at the moment and that spread that I was talking about. So the spread exists on 1 ounces all the way through to 1 kilos. 1 kilo being probably the cheapest example of it, if I'm honest. You can go and have a look yourself, but at the moment, whatever it was, $115, the spot price, but the cheapest you'll be able to get a coin of, I think, is about $160, and that would be a skippy. So that is the spread. That is the physical price. So don't go selling your silver. That's the message. You won't get anything but the spot for it, or less than spot for it. And we all know that that spot price has been instigated by greater dickheads than you and I see on the roads every day. Be safe. See you tomorrow night.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
I've already had a text from somebody saying yoga pants, not a good idea.